the power of hair and makeup and clothes, it's not for when you feel like it. It's really for when you don't feel like it. That's when it helps you the most. It can be like medicine. I'm really loving my fashion game right now. I think it's pretty iconic. My personal wardrobe at the top of my game in terms of chic, which is a grown woman's game because it takes decades to get there.
Just dipping my toes right now into the HRT world. So
hormones are sort of like hair color. You have to keep working it until you get it right. Running a little bit every day, like at a very slow pace. And now I can do anything I want to do. I can go into any gym. I can keep up with any workout. And what I loved about running was it was free, no schedule, and I already owned the equipment, my feet. If you're an adult, you need to know better. And I was lucky that I had a family to rely on and go back to. Because a lot of the girls, they were either escaping their family circumstances or escaping the circumstances in their country.
What is one beauty tip that you've learned along the way that people wouldn't know, that might surprise them?
Stretch before you get out of bed.
My guest today helped shape a pivotal shift in the beauty industry. In the early 90s, she became the first Black model to sign an exclusive major cosmetics contract with Revlon, a milestone that expanded what representation looked like in a global beauty advertising. But beyond the campaigns and the supermodel era headlines, Veronica Webb has always brought something deeper to the room: intelligence, presence, and evolution. Today, we're talking about what it means to move from image to identity, from visibility to power, and how that transformation shows up in midlife. Veronica, I'm so glad you're here, and welcome to the Iconic Midlife. How is your day going? I know you mentioned you have a lot of children in the house right now. They came back to visit.
Yeah, so I'm down from 5 kids to 1 right now. So I have happy and sad, like sad to see the other 4 go, happy to still have 1 with me.
Does it get easier, like, as they go one by one? Do you get used to, like...
Well, you know what they say? It's like little people, little problems, big people, big problems.
Yes.
So, and my cousin Bruce always says it the best. Like when they're babies, it's a complete physical game. You just need stamina. But when they're big, it's a complete mental game, and you need a different kind of stamina.
Because I'm also raising a daughter. So
how old is she?
Please tell me. She is 11, but the preteen stuff is kicking in right now. It's like, they want to go to the mall with their friends, and, they don't want to be around us as much anymore. And it's just, I feel the change happening, the pulling away, the independence, which I know is part of it, but how does that look?
But it still hurts. It still hurts because that's your tiny baby.
Right.
And also, like, we know what they don't know. And we also don't know what we don't know about what they might do. So, there's a high level of anxiety. It's like when your first baby starts walking. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
You're worried about the stairs, you're worried about this, you're worried about that. And then you don't really know, like, the baby's personality. So you don't really know what your baby might do, how impulsive they are. But the world that they're navigating right now is so tough. My kids are a little bit ahead of you. My youngest one is 21. But the thing that saved me the most, I think, and saved them the most, 2 things, was I was always in contact with their friends' mothers, right?
Oh, right.
So, Layla says, Molly says, Anderson, Alessandra says, Leonard says, I'm going here to meet so-and-so. Well, I'm going to call their mother and just say, hey, they're doing this. And, are there any rules? Are there anything, that you want to know? Call me when she gets to your house. I'll call you when they leave our house. So there was just, like that kind of watchful eye and also accountability. And whenever they had friends over, right, especially in the preteen time, I would just, call the person's mom and say, listen, I want you to know that if your kid is spending the night this weekend, my husband's in the house, their older brother is here, but he can't have friends over because there's, your daughter's here, so he can't have a friend to spend the night, or he can't have a friend late, and vice versa. When Leonard had friends over, the girls couldn't have friends over because it's too much mixing, and I to know also, like, if someone's, uncle, or, the dad has a bunch of friends over, something like, you just need to know who they're around. I know. I'm sorry. It's like, I think maybe I turn this into a TED talk. I'm
No, it's
going on
good.
too
I
long.
want to hear all the
Oh, okay.
advice because I feel like I'm on the cusp of
Um,
like the change, you know?
and then the final thing was, like, Layla came home from college and she said to me one day, she said, Mom, in high school, all my friends thought that you were such a bitch, and my jaw hit the floor because, first of all, like, they're never allowed to use a word like that with me. But, I calmed myself and I was like, well, what are you saying? She's like, oh my God, Mom, it has saved me so many times. If I didn't want to do something, I would just say, listen, my mom, if she finds out, she will kill me. She will beat me in the street, and she will not be friends with your mother anymore if she finds out that I did this with you. So I just can't. So she's like, whenever I didn't want to do something, I just blamed you.
Perfect. Perfect. And then she
Mm-hmm.
still can feel like, she looks, friendly and everything else. And then, right. It's like the perfect excuse. That's great.
Yep.
And so you didn't even know this until after she told you.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Wow. I love that you are saying to stay good friends with the other moms because I think that
So important.
yeah, that's so important. Keeping that communication alive and well between the parents must be huge. I've heard also that it's always good to have the kids over at your house to kind of keep an eye out a bit. And if that's something
Mm-hmm.
too to kind of look out for. I'm like,
Well, as much as you can host, right? Because it just, it's safer, it's better. It teaches your daughter responsibility for her environment, for the people who she picks, because you're in somebody's house. It's like, well, whatever happens over there, that's between you and your mom.
great. Right. Exactly. Okay. These are all good tips. I'm making mental notes of all of these things. And I'm like, I feel like I have to have an arsenal by the time she hits full teenage. I, have followed you for a while, Veronica, and, really have admired your career because
Thank you.
you really made such an impact, not only on the modeling world, but just in even pop culture, because you've had, many milestones. But I kind of wanted to take it back just a little bit because, I feel like your story was very unique, especially as a model, because you actually came to New York to study.
So here's what happened. I always wanted to be a model. My mother always said no. Because I used to see, like Beverly Johnson and Pat Cleveland and Iman in the magazines, and that was back in the day when, like, Ebony landed in your living room every month, and you saw the pictures of the Ebony Fashion Fair, and it looked like such a glamorous, exciting world, But what my mom wanted for me more than anything was, she's like, you have to get an education. That's something that, it's intransigent. You take it with you for the rest of your life once you have your education. But also, talking to her later on, when I was in my 20s, almost 30s, and I became successful, my mom said to me, listen, I wanted you to work all those jobs that you did. Like, I worked at a Dairy Queen, I worked at an ice cream parlor, I babysat, I did a 100 million odd jobs. She said, I wanted you to understand the value of a dollar. And I also wanted you to learn to get by on your personality. I had to figure out a way to get to New York. And I had to figure out what I was good enough at where I could get a scholarship to a school in New York. And when I was a kid, I could never quite reach, like, the academic level that I wanted to. And it always had something to do with spelling, and it had to do with reading speed. Like, years later, I realized, that I'm just very dyslexic. But, that was something that, even though, like, I would always, like, my stories would always get published in the school newspaper, right? But then when it came to the spelling test, or it came to my final grade, because of that, I couldn't, I couldn't get out of the B plus, or the A minus category. Like I couldn't go to where I wanted to go because I just didn't have the learning tools, to get around the dyslexia. Um, so I got a scholarship to Parsons, and I went to Parsons. So that got me to New York. It allowed me to afford to be in New York. And then I was working at a store in Soho as a cashier because I had had plenty of experience from working from the time I was 13. And there happened to be a Vogue shoot in front of the store I was working in that day. And the crew came in on their lunch hour because it was a fancy, beautiful store. And Billy Ford, Eileen Ford's son, was there, and Linda Cantello, who was a famous makeup artist, and Valentin, who was a famous hairdresser in France, and they all said, "Oh my God, you should be a model." So the rest is kind of history. So then I called the Better Business Bureau to make sure. Remember that?
Oh, yes, the BBB.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, to make sure that they really were who they said they were, because you couldn't Google it back then. You had to rely on the phone book and the Better Business Bureau, and that's how it started.
Wow, what an and I mean, start. Wow, it's like you were jettisoned immediately into the world of like high fashion. It seemed like your career just took off, and not without all of the amazing things that you did along the way. I mean, you made history being the first Black model to have a major makeup contract, a beauty contract with Revlon. I mean, that's huge. And that was 1992, I believe, correct?
That was 1992. The world has changed so much in the last 40 years. And I was that was a great moment, really acknowledging like all the gains of the civil rights movement that were, in large part economic, where you had a whole cadre of Black and brown customers who had incredible amounts of disposable income, significantly enough that every large corporation had to respond. So that was amazing. To me, that was like one of the biggest milestones. And, what I also love is that my daughters have grown up in a world where beauty isn't so narrow. Beauty comes in all ages, all sizes, all races, all orientations, preferences. So that feels really good to me, that my girls see beauty for who people are, not where people come from.
Yeah, that is amazing. And like you're saying with your daughters, they're following in your footsteps. I mean, they're modeling as well. So do they come to you for any sort of advice or, to ask you about the business or anything like that? Or do they pretty much have their, kind of their own way?
Well, like every kid, they have to have their own way. They do. Lots of times they come to me for advice when something goes wrong. And sometimes they come they come to me for advice, but they don't take it, which is okay too. But yeah, they do. And, and you have to stand back and let them make their own mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be one of the hardest lessons of parenting is doing just that, is standing back and letting them make their own mistakes because they're in a safe because you've got them. Got safe boundaries around them, but just you want to save them from pain, but that's not realistic, right? I mean, in the real world, they have to learn how to deal with the pain. So that is a huge lesson.
And it's more a lesson as a parent, and like when I think of like, did I always listen to my mother? No. Did I think I knew more than she knew? Yes. Did I think I was immortal because I was 20 something years old? Thank God I did. Otherwise I never would have left the house. Uh, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's motherhood. It can take you to the mountaintop or it can take you to hell. But what I love most about them following me into the fashion business is that I've built enough of a business as a woman that I can then, give something to my children that gives them a head start.
Yes, yes, it's true. And like you're saying, you've got the advice, whether they take it or not. You've been there, that experience. And, you rose to fame pretty quickly when you started modeling. So, Fame is a funny thing. People want it. People, especially people who don't have it, they look at it as such a high currency and they're like, I want to reach that level of fame or I want that notoriety. But, you know, not fame is not always pretty, I think there are parts of fame that no one really talks about. And what do you think when you reach that point of, being famous and people knowing who you were there things that it took away from you that you were not prepared for?
Well, like you said, fame is currency, right? But it costs, right? And one of the biggest things, the constant interest that is attached to the cost of fame is you're always on. Um, you're always fair game. So, and there's this wonderful side of it where, people experience connection through you and they feel inspired by you. And, they look to you as a beacon of, whatever it is, whether it's beauty or economic freedom or adventure or something that gives them a touchstone to a way that they grew up. And that's incredible. The other part of it is, people sometimes feel that they can judge you and judge you harshly and that you don't have feelings. So anything that they might, in the olden days, people would have to walk up to you and say something to your face. But now that we have the internet and we hear everyone's opinion every second on everything that ever was and ever will be, there's so much more slings and arrows that come at you. And you have to learn to sort of toughen up, and you have to learn that, a lot of how people speak to you or treat you is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. More than anything. I find lots of times if people lash out or they're particularly nasty or something like that, they're trying to heal a wound.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So either, they're trying to heal a wound or they're retaliating, at you, not against you, but at you, because the person, whoever did what they did to them, they're unable to speak to that person or stand up to that person. And that kind of, you carry that in everyday life, so when, the lady at the DMV gets short with you, or, another driver flips you off from another car, you kind of have to just let it roll off and realize it's not you. It's not them, and everyone makes mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, you can say, I'm sorry. If someone else makes a mistake, don't punish them.
Mhm. Yep. You don't know what people are going through, right? I mean,
You
somebody
do not.
right, that's the thing, and that's also, I think, feel like a really big lesson that I've had to learn is that, somebody might be having the worst day of their lives. They could have lost their job, they could have lost a family member, like, whatever that is, that story is, I have to, like, consciously try to remind myself.
That's why it's really important, I think, also for women to compliment other women, like, on a job well done. When you see a woman on the street who looks nice, speak up and say, you look great, you look beautiful. I was walking down the street one day and there was a woman, she had like this gorgeous head of gray hair and she was kind of dressed, in comme des garçons, she had a very kind of like sophisticated, avant-garde sort of, Prada-esque style. And, I was walking behind her and I made an effort to catch up to her on the street in New York. I said, "You look amazing. You look so pulled together and beautiful." And she stood there for a second and then tears came to her eyes. She said, "That is the nicest thing anybody said to me in 6 months."
Wow.
It's complete. And I hugged her, because I could, see that she was in pain and she felt so lonely. And it was such a nice moment. Like, I still remember that. I thought, she gave me so much, inspiration by looking so great and just, reaching out and saying, thank you for pulling, celebrating your day out in the world. Because I always say, like the power of hair and makeup and clothes, it's not for when you feel like it. It's really for when you don't feel like it. That's when it helps you the most. It can be like medicine.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up like complimenting other women because kindness goes a long way. As you describe her, a woman, with beautiful gray hair, and I can kind of picture her. And I too, I can look at a woman like that and say, that's beautiful. Aging is a gift.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's not something to look down upon because not everybody gets it, you know? Not
Mm-hmm.
not everyone's lucky
Mm-hmm.
enough to live that. So, what are your thoughts on, aging, especially in a business that is so focused on youth culture and trying to chase that, the clock backwards? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't want to turn the clock backwards. I want to stay neck and neck with time. And what I want to get older. I hope to be a very old woman. I hope to live, to be more than 100 years old. I really do, because I want to, I want to see my kids' lives unfold more than anything. I want the time with my husband more than anything. But what I am fighting is decrepitude, right? So, I'm just not going to allow myself to get weak. That's what I'm fighting. Um, and it's like, it's easy sometimes to think, well, it doesn't matter. You know, um, I don't have to work out as much. I don't have to eat as well. I don't have to take my supplements. I don't have to go to the doctor. Well, yeah, you know what? It matters, because you would never let your child say that. You would never let, your loved one, your husband, your wife do you that way. You'd be like, no, you're not. You're going to stay healthy. You're going to stay strong, because if you don't do that, then it falls to someone else, and then you become a burden.
Do you see people's attitudes changing around aging in modeling and in this kind of sort of, entertainment world?
Yeah, I mean, like, look at what Matthew Blasey just did at Chanel. The first in the first 10 people in the show, which is the most important. Um, you know, in the New York show, he sent out that fabulous girl from India who had literally just graduated NYU the week before. She was 25 years old. So for someone who's just starting their career, that's also a milestone in this business, that someone starts at 25. And then at the couture show, Stephanie Cavalli, who's 40 something years old, we're at the same agency. Stephanie opened the show. So that's a seismic shift.
Right. We didn't see that in the 90s as much or in the 80s, right? I mean, it was like
So
what would you say? What was like the cutoff age? Would you say the cutoff age used to be like for like the
30,
30, right?
and you better be a tight 30.
Wow.
But also, we have so many more different things at our disposal now than we did. Like we have infrared light, we have infrared sauna, we have, Botox, Dysport, laser, um, and an infinite amount more of leisure time, right? And that's time that can be devoted to, working out, resting, because sleep is never underrated, let me
Oh,
tell you.
yes.
You
That's
know,
like the best beauty hack ever is sleep,
yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, like your body can get very organized if you give it enough sleep. It can really organize. Um, so yeah, and even stuff like a Swiffer, right? Like you're not out there like with a bucket and a mop and you know doing like housework that just wears you out. You bust out that Swiffer at the end of the day and kind of go over the floor every day for 5-10 minutes, and it's not that you have to give up your entire Saturday to clean the house like you used to.
Mhm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's interesting. A friend of mine who is also like in the public eye, she recently had a facelift. And so she posted all
Hmm.
about it. Like she was very transparent about it. Kind of took everyone inside to the doctor's office, There are even pictures of her on the operating table. She's very transparent about it. And I also try to be, I mean, I haven't had a facelift, but that'll come one day, I'm sure. But, with the other things I've done, I've been transparent about.
Yeah, no, I love Botox, Dysport, laser, um, IPL, everything in moderation because you just want to make sure that you guard the integrity of your skin, right? Because it's our largest organ. It's the body's first line of defense against infection and disease. So just taking the time, putting lotion on everything. If you have dry skin, like some people have normal skin. I have one or two friends, they don't have to do anything. Like they don't use any face cream. They don't, nothing, nothing, nothing.
It's genetic for them, right? Like just genes
Yeah.
and wow.
I mean, I'm not that way. Like I have the driest skin in the world. So if I don't get up and put on some lotion, if I don't go to bed and put on face cream and lotion, it's it's curtains for my face and and my skin, but it's really I'm glad that people don't gatekeep about what it is that they use to keep themselves looking the way that makes them feel at their best.
Yeah. And I think it's a choice too, right? Like you can choose to do as many or as little things as you want. It's whatever you feel is right for you. Because I do also see that there's a lot of either a lot or nothing. When I've heard other discussions, it's like, oh, well, you either do all the things or you can't touch your face and do anything, and that like a lot of times it's very black or white. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be. It can be gray. Like if you want to do one thing or two things, or you want to do 10 things, or you want to do nothing, like it's whatever that person wants.
I think the most important thing is you find a conservative dermatologist or plastic surgeon and someone who is much more likely to tell you no than yes. Because, as much as we think we know, we have no idea how, the deep plane muscles of the face actually work, and, how the ankle bone is connected to the knee bone. We really don't know. But your doctor knows way better than you do. And if your doctor tells you no, or this could happen, or that can happen, listen, err on the side of caution.
Yes, 100%. It's much easier to add things in than to try to correct or replace what you've done, which is tricky.
Yeah. And if you have any kind of comorbidity, do not be foolish. Do not be foolish. Like, make sure that you are in excellent health all around before you do anything to yourself.
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting. People have talked a lot about these GLP-1s, right? They've become so popular,
Mhm.
in all facets of
I
life.
use them to get rid of my menopause weight.
Oh my gosh. See, I really want to do it as well because I gained so much weight in my belly. So did it work for you?
Mhm.
It worked well for you, huh?
Yes, I did it very conservatively. You have to be careful because once we're in menopause, right? You start to have bone redaction, and so if you are taking in less calories and exercising less, it can lead to bone loss. You also have to really make sure that you're doing resistance weight bearing exercise and be consistent on it because you can lose muscle very quickly because the GLP-1 gets in there and it just it tells your body that it doesn't need as many calories, right? And so when you are eating less and not working out, that's not good for your body. And you have to make sure that you really eat right and do it slowly. Like slowly is because you can always stop, you can always correct if you go slowly.
Yes, that's a good point. You don't want to lose all the muscle too quickly too, because that also affects skin elasticity, right? And you can get droopier skin.
Well, we're getting older. So, I'm about to be 61, right?
Next
So
week,
I'm
as a matter of
on,
fact,
yeah,
right?
next week. So it's like I'm in the phase of my life now where, you know, I am fighting to maintain muscle and fighting to maintain tissue, right? Because, what happens when we die? We slowly disappear. We go from everything to nothing. So, it is a fight constantly for healthy, strong tissue. That is what the second half of your life is about.
Yes, and it's about protein, right? All I hear is protein. To eat more protein, many, many, many,
Yes.
grams of protein. So that's like the other battle is I feel like, okay, I've got to get like protein here, protein, I can protein wherever I can get it. So it changes. It's been changing as we've gotten older. But I will say, and tell me if you
You get
feel,
so much protein out of chicken, though, I got to tell you. Yeah, and there's plenty of protein in beans, and you can always toss if you have a can of like white beans, it
Mhm.
sounds gross, but you can put a heaping tablespoon into a smoothie.
Oh, makes it a little creamy too, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. I don't know about you, but I think maybe because I'm so conscientious of it now, but I do feel stronger in my body now than I ever have before when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I feel like I wasn't as focused on like, the heavy lifting and like you're saying, like the eating protein. It was about look skinny, be skinny, like the skinny, skinny, skinny was in my head. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like be strong is like kind of like the different sort of I don't know. I just maybe it's, part mental for me too, but I do feel stronger in my body now. Do you also kind of feel that way?
Well, I had two very not easy pregnancies where I had a cholestasis of pregnancy both times. I was bed rested both times for like 6 weeks, two C sections. And after that, like I was never more in awe of my body. And I was also, how can I put this? My body had never been weaker. Like my feet hurt for 2 years. I couldn't do a sit up. The last and the last two, they were 22 months apart.
Oh, so
So
quick. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so I just made up my mind. I'm going to get up and I'm going to be the strongest that I've ever been, and I'm not going to look back. And I started, you know, just running a little bit every day, like at a very slow pace. And it took me, how old was it? Took me like 3.5, maybe 4 years. But then I ran a New York City marathon. And then I ran three more after that. And just having that conditioning and that stamina, now I can do anything I want to do. I can go into any gym. I can keep up with any workout. I can do anything I want to do. And what I loved about running was it was free, no schedule, and I already owned the equipment, my feet.
And how much of that was mental for you? Did it really just kind of like put you in a good
It's all
headspace?
mental.
It's all mental, right?
Well, first of all, it was such a blow to my ego, because I'm used to being good at things. I'm used to being praised for things, right? And, here I am, 40 something years old, and I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes like, because running is all pain management. Running is all talking yourself through it until you break the wall. Like the first 10, 15 minutes running, it's yuck. Um, but then you break the wall, right? And then you feel free and then you feel good and everything's like moving all together at once. And like just, your body is flooded with air. Your brain is flooded with blood. Like you feel the most alert and alive, that you ever have. And then, you know, 5, 10 miles later, you hit another wall and, you know, your feet hurt, your calves are burning. You're like, oh, I can't believe this. But you talk yourself through it and you keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. And it kind of lets you know you can do whatever you want to do. It's a question of talking yourself through it and dealing with the embarrassment, dealing with the pain. And and like for the marathon, I kept thinking, oh well, I have to do it in like 3 hours, da 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 da, which would be competitive for my age. And then finally, I was like, you know what? You're not going to win. So just get in it, do the best you can, and enjoy the fact that you can actually even be there. That's enough. That's it. You know?
Hmm. And I like that you said, you know what, screw the timeline, because that is a big thing also that for me is like, okay, I can say it's great to have goals for yourself and say, okay, I want to do this and I want to accomplish this. But then we put these little restrictions around those, and it's like you're saying,
Mhm.
I have to finish it in 3 hours. But then when you let go of those kinds of things, you can actually enjoy the experience. It changes things.
Yes.
What are the things that you are not willing to put up with now? What are the things that have changed as you've gotten older and sort of entered into this midlife realm?
Um, I'm not willing to put up with mean people.
Mm,
And that's kind of the biggest thing, because if you have if you have a good crew and you have people who really, care about what they're doing, you know, then you can always have a good day, no matter if, a tornado comes through and there's no light and, everything on set is blowing away. You can have a good day, if everyone has a good heart.
yeah. No, that's a good point. Do you feel like, in your experience in the modeling world, were you protected in that way? Like you were pretty much around good people for the most part?
Um, well, I've had the same agent in Italy now for 42 years. So yeah. Um, and Beth Ann was my agent for years and years when she owned an agency, and she was very protective of me. Karl Lagerfeld, Azadina Laya, Isaac Mizrahi. I mean, that was like my family, and they really took care of me, and countless others, people whose names I can't, even begin to list here because it would be too long. I've received many blessings and so much goodness in my life that yes, and I also think, just like, I had good parents. I was raised with good values. I came from the Midwest. I also grew up in a big city, which is Detroit. So I was sort of streetwise and naturally suspicious in many ways. In Yeah, in a healthy way. Um, and very often, like, and I was lucky that I had a family to rely on and go back to, because a lot of the girls who had terrible things happened to them, they were either escaping their family circumstances or escaping the circumstances in their country. Um, or they came from a small town where everybody pretty much knew everybody. And so they were very trusting. And, that's not, and like when people take advantage of children, because for the most part, models are children. They're children. They're 15, 16, 17 years old, sometimes even younger. They're, young college students, 20, 21 years old. And they're thrust into an adult world where they have to be completely professional. And anybody who does anything to a young person who, they know that the person doesn't know better. And even if they seem willing and, and they want to be down and they want to be cool, if you're an adult, you need to know better.
Yeah, no, I feel for those girls because I know, like you're saying, they're all different circumstances where they come out of and they're just pursuing their dreams. They're trying to get out there and do this. And, they're hearing all these adults, that try to influence one way or another. So I can imagine how, tricky that is for
And I
them.
also have to say, like, there's no type of girl that abuse happens to. It happens across the board. It can happen to anyone. And there, for the grace of God, go I. Right? Because there's so many times I was thousands of miles away from home on a booking by myself, no agent, nobody I knew, you know, somehow, I I had grace. I was protected.
What are the things that you think saved you from, harrowing things like that? Were there certain, like, because were had street smarts or,
Yeah, there's that, and a lot of it is just luck. Like, one of the very first experiences I had, trying to be a model or thinking about being a model when I was 15, you know, um, because I used to, I loved getting dressed and I was always totally styled out every day, no matter where I was going, because life is the occasion you get ready for each day. And I was 15, 16, and I was walking down the street in Detroit on Woodward Avenue in front of our big department store called Hudson's. And this guy came up to me and he was in a nice suit and he said, "Oh, I am head of the fashion department at Hudson's, and we are starting to recruit for our annual Model Go See contest, and you would be great. Um, will you come to my office with me right now? And I said, you know what? I'm on my way to meet someone because I was going to my girlfriend's house and she lived not far from there. And I said, could I either come back later or tomorrow? So he described to me how to get there, go through the store, go to the right, go on the service elevator, get off on this floor, go down the hallway. So I came back the following day with my older sister. And the place that he had directed us to was a dark storeroom.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Thank God no one was there. Thank God it was before cell phones or anything like that, because you have a cell phone. I might have shot a quick text to my girlfriend and said, "Hey, I'm just going to run this errand. I'll be right there." Or we would have contacted him the next day, to say that we were coming. So we went and we told the store manager. The store manager called the police, and I could hear them on the phone, and I could hear the policeman on the phone saying to him, "Well, this is probably the same guy who assaulted a couple other women. Can you get a description?"
Oh.
So I gave a description of the guy. I don't know if they ever caught him, but I mean, it's caution and it's luck. It's caution and it's luck, and that's one thing. I tell my girls, you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious, and then you hope you have luck.
Right. Oh my God. Well, that's a thing too. And as a parent, that's like next level anxiety too, because that, especially with daughters, like you can tell them all the things, but like there are crazy people out there, I guess you just prepare them as best as you can.
I'll tell you a funny story. So my youngest daughter, the first time she goes to a nightclub, right? Of course, like all this crazy stuff happens to her. And she's, and she's calling me the whole time. She's calling me on the way there. She's like, texting me from the club. She's like, "Oh gosh, Mom, this guy came over and started doing magic tricks." And I was like, "What, are you crazy?" And then she said, then this other guy. And then her friend went to the bar, and then her friend came back with this 40-year-old guy. And then, she told her friend, she's like, "Are you crazy? We're 18. He's 40. You think he's interested in anything any of us have to say? Are you stupid?"
Oh my gosh. See, you prepared her well. She knows.
Yeah, that was another proud moment as a parent.
Yeah. Exactly. You're like, I've done my job. Like, this is what you want your daughter to say in these crazy times. Oh my gosh. See, that's a thing. It's like all those things that we did. Now, like the tables are turning and it's now them living that life, I mean, that's what blows my mind. I'm like thinking in my head about my daughter. I'm like, please don't jump out the window, sneak out of the house like I used to. But I guess, what you're saying is right. Like we have to prepare them and just let them know, make the good choices, make the good choices in life. I mean, that's hopefully what they will do. But it sounds like you've done that. So that's good.
I mean, as much as I could. No parent is ever going to be perfect. Every parent is going to have heartache. Every parent is going to, have a mistake that they'll kick themselves for forever. That's the game.
Right. That is the game. That's absolutely true. So what do you think for women, midlife women, what does it look like to be powerful at this age to you? Like what does that mean to you? What does that feel like to you?
Confident in your body,
Mm.
in control of your finances,
Yes.
having a perspective and a calm about your future.
Yeah. Do you think about your future? How do you think about it when you do?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that look like to you?
I mean, the thing that I put like my North Star is staying healthy, because, if I'm healthy, I can pretty much do anything. So physically healthy. And then, financially healthy, right? Um, because the world is in such flux and it's changing so much, and how do you really budget day in, day out to make sure that, you'll have what you need when you stop working, or God forbid, like all your analog and early aughts digital skills become irrelevant,
Right.
right? So,
Can we bring back some analog? I mean, I miss the days of the planner and writing things down, but I don't see it coming back.
yep,
Right?
yep. So, and then just, little things day in and day out. Like, I think about like how much more independent can I be? And a lot of it is, and a lot of it is always making my own coffee.
Interesting. What is it about the
I know that
coffee?
sounds crazy, but I have a friend, she's the budgetnista. And she said to me about 10 years ago, she really helps women and families financial plan. She said, um, what you're spending at Starbucks, especially if you have a refill card where you're giving them an interest-free loan every month, is probably more than most people add to their 401k every year.
That's big.
And now times that by, if you give your kids a coffee habit, see where this is going?
Yes. Multiple. I mean, that's just more and more and more.
And like if I'm in the city, right? What's a coffee? $7? You do that 7 days a week. That's $49 a week. That's $200 a month.
Okay, so you're saying make the coffee at home. Make your cappuccino or your drip or whatever you're having at home.
Just and like little things like that, and I feel like it's better, to do your own manicure and pedicure a couple times. And then when you go to the salon, it's really a treat. And you also have more money aside to give your esthetician a better tip.
That's a good point. It's like making little changes like that, right? Like you don't even have to
Mhm.
overhaul your whole life. It's like little smart choices like that add up.
Yeah, and even simple things like, there's that washcloth is called the makeup eraser.
Yes, yes.
That saves you a lot of money because, makeup wipes, all these different removers, that adds up.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Now, have you ever given yourself an at-home facial? That's the question.
Oh, I do it all the time.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you do? What do you do?
So you take Greek yogurt,
Okay.
you take papaya seeds, you scoop out the papaya seeds, you put the yogurt and the papaya seeds into the blender. You put a little bit of honey and then you put it on your face. You leave it like 20, 30 minutes and rinse it off.
Ah, okay.
And then I love a Biore pore strip. Love
Do
them.
you really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I love Biore pore strips. I love the Medicube.
Okay.
I think the Medicube is
Yes.
great.
Mm.
What else do I use? And then like there's a lot of great sheet masks.
Okay.
Like SK2. Sephora makes some really good ones, although I feel like they have better ones in Europe than they do here. They have like this bubble cleansing mask in Europe that they don't have. But those charcoal cleansing masks, like once a month, or after you've been wearing makeup for 5 days a week or something like that, or like a lot of, especially sunscreen. Ugh. Yeah, sunscreen's hard to get out of your pores.
It can clog your pores and make you break out, can it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. La Roche-Posay is fantastic. Those are fantastic products. I think they're at CVS. I think has La Roche-Posay. The Ordinary is fantastic. So if you go in there or you look on their website and you really look at what your skin concerns are, you can add all that stuff into say whatever drugstore product you're using. So if you need some more hyaluronic acid, you just add it, from The Ordinary. So you added it to the drugstore thing that you got from Neutrogena or wherever. Or, if you want vitamin C, you use it from The Ordinary. Um, and it boosts all your products very economically. And the other thing too, it's like it's consistency of care. If you have a real skin issue that you're battling, like rosacea or acne or something like that, and you need extra help, get it, because that's your health. That's your skin saying, help me. Um, but if you have, like, normal oily or combination skin that doesn't tend to have too many problems, you can do a lot of daily maintenance on your own that will take you very, very far.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, what is one beauty tip that you've learned along the way that maybe isn't so like that people wouldn't know that might surprise them?
Stretch before you get out of bed.
Really? Just to limber up and like kind of get the blood flowing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. Relax your jaw, like scrunch up your face, open your mouth really wide, stick your tongue all the way out, roll your head around, roll your shoulders, hug your knees into your chest, take one knee and bend it into a figure four and stretch sideways and then do the other way. And then when you get up, touch your toes.
That is really good. That actually is good for longevity too, I hear. Keeping that limber flexibility.
And also, because I love my morning coffee, but I wait 45 minutes before I drink it so that my own cortisol and my own adrenaline gets me up and ready to go. And yeah, and the caffeine bonds better to your caffeine receptors in the brain if you wait a little bit, because otherwise you're like jacking your whole system awake. Like you're jacking your gut awake, you're jacking your brain awake. Give your body a chance to do it.
Yeah, give it a chance to like wake up a bit, right? Yes, I mean, so much of the midlife game too is what I'm noticing is like the hormone balance. It's like I've got to feel, if it's not the melatonin, it's the cortisol, and then it's like insulin, and it's this game. It's like like a checker game almost of like trying to get these hormones in check. I mean, was that something that
Mm-hmm.
did you deal with any sort of hormone fluctuations or anything like that?
Yes, and there's a fabulous doctor, Dr. Tara Allman. You can listen to her podcast or read her book, Menopause Confidential. And then also there's Dr. Mary Claire Haver, which she's huge on Instagram. She's putting out great information every single day.
Okay, yes. No, that's a great thing. I know I'm just dipping my toes right now into the HRT world. So,
Yeah, so hormones are sort of like hair color. You just have you have to keep working it until you get it right.
right? And it changes, right? Like sometimes one thing is good and then something, things change and you kind of have to
Mm-hmm.
curate the recipe a
Yeah, we're
bit, right?
women. Our bodies are dynamic.
Right.
Our bodies, are designed to do so much. Our bodies are designed to make like multiple different kinds of people, like men. We're designed to make boys, girls, kids with straight hair, kids with curly hair, kids with dark skin, kids with freckles. I mean, a lot goes on.
Right? It's true. Our bodies are literally like amazing.
Yep, and they grow, and our bodies change every 30 days.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. The fact that we can bleed consistently and not die, I mean, we're
Hmm.
pretty amazing. you
Yes,
know?
we are. Women are rugged machines. We are
Yes.
rugged, rugged, rugged.
Yes, built to last. That is for sure. What is the 25-year-old Veronica? What was she like? What was she doing?
The 25-year-old Veronica was trying so hard to figure out what her true North Star was creatively. Was it fashion? Was it acting? Was it writing? The 25-year-old Veronica wanted so much to be a mother and a wife and to know who her children and who the love of her life was going to be. The 25-year-old Veronica was trying so hard to prove that she belonged in the fashion industry and could really do it. The 25-year-old Veronica was at the same time in awe and terrified of how far she had come.
Wow. A lot of duality. Like a lot of both sides of the coin. That's so interesting.
Hmm.
So, what advice would you give her now? What would you say to 25-year-old Veronica?
You're harder on yourself than anybody could ever be. And beating yourself up all the time, thinking that, you're not enough and you need to do more. And, you're comparing yourself to others and thinking that, someone else is, better than you somehow, or has something that you don't have, just really opens the door to disaster. It's like, that's just a bottomless pit of misery when you're comparing yourself to other people. I remember that year I interviewed Barry White for Details magazine, and asked him actually, what's the most important advice that you can give to a young person? And he said, never ask yourself, when will I? Ask yourself, how can I?
Oh, it's like reframing that whole question. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, because when you say when, you're waiting. When you say how, you're doing.
Ah, it's active, it's action.
Yeah. And, my mother always, supported everything that we wanted to do, but she would say, okay, well, how are you going to get started? So it very much, echoed my mother's advice.
That's amazing. So you already had that seed planted almost, where it was.
Hmm.
So how do you keep yourself, because comparison is natural. I mean, we all have it to some degree. But when you're in the modeling world, and you guys are all stunning and gorgeous and doing all of these amazing things, how do you keep yourself from falling too far into that comparison world?
The only thing you can do is the best that you can do, right? So if you want your legs to be a certain way, or if you want your skin to be a certain way, or if you want your money to be a certain way, whatever, you better ask yourself, am I doing the best that I can do?
Mhm.
Or what can I do better? Because I have a goal. I can't have what you have. I can't have your life. I can't have your body. I can't have your career. I can't have your background. I can't have your personality. I have what I have. Right. So, what are my goals? And what's the best I can do? Like, how do I get 110% out of everything I have to reach that goal?
Mhm. Good point. That's a great point.
Because if you're lacking something, it's within you.
Mhm. It is. You have to look inward. You do have to look inward, like you're saying. What is the biggest lesson that you have learned in midlife?
Very often, we don't realize how much we have.
Mm.
Like every morning, as soon as I open my eyes, like I look around and I start like just being thankful. I start thanking God, like, thank you for this day. Thank you for letting me be awake. Thank you for, letting me have my health, a roof over my head, safety, the love of my life next to me. My children are okay. Um, you know, I have a car to drive. I have the ability to help other people, which is also amazing, right? You think, because the world is hard, most people can barely get by, let alone have enough to be able to help others. And so it's really a question of, when I real world it, I am healthier, safer, and richer than I ever thought I would be in every way.
And you're still doing you're still doing what you love to do, I mean, you're walking those runways, you're doing the modeling, like you are still very present, in the world. Like it is a gift. Like you're right. It's like looking at that and having gratitude, right?
Yeah. And like some of the people who I admire most are doctors. My sister's a doctor. And so, I'm kind of in that world. And, Jennifer just retired a year ago. And she said, I may be retired, but here's the thing, I can always help.
It doesn't change anything, right? I mean, she still can do what that passion, is still there and still very much alive.
And that intransigent education that my mother made us all get.
Yes, isn't that a gift? Like, because that
Hmm.
is something that was so important, that is like carried you through, having that education. So how are you living iconically right now?
Well, let's see. Health wise, having the absolute privilege of being able to set aside an hour a day for my health. Um, Fashion wise, um, having gathered the best of the best, and really at the top of my game in terms of chic, which is a grown woman's game because it takes decades to get there, right? You have to know what fits you, what flatters you, and financially what makes sense to hang in your closet. So I'm really loving my fashion game right now. I think it's pretty iconic, my personal wardrobe. And then, really just basking in all the aspects of love that is my family. Love is not always easy. Love is not always romantic or pretty. Very often love is tough. Love can be rejected. Love can be frustrating, but you have it.
You seem to live in the present, which is a gift.
This is it.
Right? This is it. Today. Like that's this minute. This is all we have,
Yeah, like I'm never going back to the time when I could put my head in my mother's lap when I had a problem. I'm never going back to the time when, I was the biggest model in the world and walking the Chanel runway and Karl Lagerfeld was there, or, walking Azzadine's runway. I had my time with them, they were here and they were wonderful. They were angels in my life. They passed on. I'm never going back to the time when my kids are babies again, which was some of the most awesome moments in my entire life. I mean, like the first time you walk down the street holding your child's hand, that's like bigger than getting an Oscar, when your child's walking on their own. So, like I'm not going back to my wedding day again, but all those things make today good. All those memories save me, and knowing that today is all I have and that's all I have to give to the people who I love. That's very freeing.
That is. It's very freeing. It forces you to live in the moment and for good reason. Well, thank you so much, Veronica.
Thank you, Roxy. This was a pleasure.
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. And I just want everybody to know where they can find you. I know you're popular on Instagram.
At Veronica Webb, or go to Substack, where my column is Haute Mess, HAUTEMESS on Substack.
Very nice. And what's coming up for your Substack? Anything exciting?
Well, I'm going to give you a full Fashion Week download as soon as next week when I stop working, and I can kind of share all the little behind the scenes secrets that I picked up this season.
How was this season compared to others? Did you enjoy it as much?
It's always good.
Yeah.
It's always good.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Veronica. It's been wonderful. So enjoyed it.
Thank you, Roxy. And shout out to the orange lips and lipstick. Nice touch.
This is what I love about conversations like this. We get to see the woman behind the mythology. Reinvention, power, boundaries, truth. Veronica, thank you for your honesty, your perspective, and the evolution you continue to embody. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure you follow the show wherever you're listening. Leave a rating or review. It genuinely helps more women discover these stories. And share this episode with a woman who needs to hear it. And don't forget, the game episode with Veronica drops this Thursday. You're going to want to hear her rapid fire takes. New full episodes of the Iconic Midlife drop every Tuesday. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and built for a midlife that doesn't ask for permission.